Hi everyone, it is Atia here of Booking with Atia, and today we're going to get into my mid-year freakout tag. I'm going to be sharing my stats for the first half of the year, January through June, as well as some superlatives, best book, most surprising, disappointing, things like that. Before we get in, I do want to encourage you to check out my bonfire as well as my Etsy shop to get yourself some merch and some bookmarks. And if you'd like to support the channel on a monthly basis, you might want to consider becoming a Patreon or a channel member. Jumping right into the stats, it was a good first 6 months of 2026. I'm not gonna lie. I read 175 books that totaled out to 2,724 pages and 342.80 hours. My average star rating, and I always love when it is above a 4 star. My average star rating for the first half of the year was 4.23. And then I only did one reread, and I believe that was that my did I reread Beloved? What was my reread of the year? Oh, Iron Widow. I reread Iron Widow. I had 7 DNFs, which is like averaging a little bit more than one a month. And then 20 of the books I read were by debut authors. 60 of the books were new to me authors, which is pretty cool. 16 were indie published books, and 31 of my reads were new releases or ARCs, advanced reader copies, and 144 were backlist titles, so they came out before 2026. Starting with the best books of the year so far, I read so much that I can never just pick one for these superlatives, so I'm going to give you not a synopsis, but like a general 1 to 2 sentence overview of what the book is about, maybe, or like some tropes or something like that. And going into best books of the year, I have 7 on this list. The first one is actually a graphic novel, which is pretty cool for me because I've been trying to get more into graphic novels, and that is Space Chasers to the Moon. This is the sequel to, well, Space Chasers, and this series follows a group of middle school like science kids, which is like such a middle school science kids. What? They are chosen to be the first middle schoolers or the youngest people in space. And so they're going on yet another adventure. And this one is they're going to the moon. Deals a lot with just like interpersonal problems, accessibility, equality, really equity, things like that. Really enjoyed it. Then Vivid by Beverly Jenkins is a historical romance. We follow Vivica. She is a doctor. She arrives in a town, and the mayor of the town is like, I thought you were a man, so I'm going to need you. She's a doctor, like I said. I thought you were a man. I thought the town doctor was going to be a man, so I kind of need you to like get back on your train and leave. And she's like, no. And it follows their romance, essentially enemies to lovers type situation. And there's a little bit, as with most of Beverly Jenkins' works, there's a little bit of some kind of outside threat that is threatening the town or threatening the main characters. So it adds a little bit more to the historical romance. Then we have The Wondrous Life and Loves of Nella Carter by Brioni Nwosu. And this one follows Nella Carter. She makes a deal with death, and it's like, I'm going to show you the beauty of humanity. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to give you as long as you need. And he grants her with immortality, and he checks in ever so often. And it is her living these several lives, trying to find the beauty and falling in love and experiencing life. And she finds this man, she comes in contact with this man in present day. And she's like, I don't want to lose this man. And so it's her figuring out and telling him about her life, but also kind of figuring out like how to get out of the bargain with death. Then we have the Inugami Curse by Seishi Yokomizu. This is part of the Kosuke Kindaichi mystery series. This is book, I believe, 4, and we follow essentially Inspector Kosuke Kindaichi investigating these murders that are taking place in this family and like what is happening. Then number 5 is called Your Boyfriend by Olivia A. Cole and Ashley Woodfolk. This is a YA romance following, I forgot their names, but we have one girl who is in love with this like really popular girl, Maya Moon, and she's like, does she like me? Does she not? And then we have, let's call that person girl A. Then we have girl B, who was kind of in a situationship with Maya Moon until Maya Moon decided, like, you know what, I'm actually going to get back together with my boyfriend. And she's in the closet, and there's like all these different dynamics. And so girl A and girl B, they decide that they're going to make it so that Maya Moon falls in love with girl A and then break her heart. But of course, it's really just them falling for each other. That was a surprise, which I guess maybe I shouldn't have said that. Is it on the surprise list? I don't know. But I absolutely loved it, hence why it's on this list. Then we have Dear Wendy by Anne Zhao. This is another YA contemporary. We follow two girls. They're in college. Again, I'm just going to call them Girl A and Girl B. Girl A runs a Dear Wendy account, and she basically gives love advice, and it's under a pseudonym. She gives love advice, but her, I guess you can say, secret is that she's actually asexual, and she doesn't want people to know because then people might be like, well, how can you give us love advice if you don't feel sexual attraction yourself? But she loves it because she does a bunch of research. She's really good at it. And then we have girl B, who creates another account just like on a whim, and it's Dear Wanda. And Dear Wanda is essentially like the antithesis to Dear Wendy. And girl B is also asexual, and girl A and girl B end up becoming friends via a mutual class. They end up becoming friends without knowing that they are online rivals. And so it's tracking their friendship as well as their online rivalry and how that just like comes apart and also comes together. I loved the friendship that is between the two of them. This one is like, if you're looking for female friendship and there's no trace of romance, no trace of like weird cattiness, just like true female friendship and the beauty and the necessity of it, definitely check out Dear Wendy. And the last book on the best books superlative so far is going to be Paradise by Toni Morrison. This one follows a town. Don't ask me the name because I forgot it. And in the town, everyone is like they try to follow like the right way of living. It is an all black town, and they have kind of encapsulated themselves in this all black town. Of course, there is racism. I forget exactly what time period this takes place in, if it's the 1930s or I forget, but it was founded by these black families, and the families that founded the town are like the leading families, if you will. Then we have outside of the town this group of women who essentially live outside of what society has deemed respectable for women. And we have some of the women coming into the town, some of the men leave the town, some of the women from the town become friends with some of the women outside of the town. And it is just this battle of the minds and battle of morality, if you will. Next up, our next superlative is best sequels of the first half of the year. The first one's going to be Blood Justice by Terry J. Benton Walker. This was, and I very rarely say this, a perfect sequel. A perfect second book, too. Doing a perfect second book within a trilogy or a quartet is very hard. But this one had humor, it had depth, it had character, it had a little bit of romance, and we are in a like alternate reality, if you will, and witches and magical folk, vampires, wizards, things like that are very much a part of society. And we're in New Orleans, and we have this family, Christina and Clement. They are twins, and they are trying to protect and build back up their family's legacy, which has been threatened. And then we have Valentina. She is essentially the granddaughter of the woman who ruined their family. And so, of course, we're following the events of book one, which is Blood Debts. Second book on this list is Guardians of Dawn, Ami. This is a sequel to Guardians of Dawn, Zara. I talked about Guardians of Dawn, Zara in my yes, no, maybe for quarter one. Obviously, it was a yes. And the sequel stood up. It really just like stood up to everything that I wanted, did what it needed to do. Again, great romance. This one, of course, dear to my heart because it is a light retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and that is my favorite Disney princess story. And so it had a little bit of that as well. Always love when I have a light or a soft retelling, finding the elements of the original story, especially Beauty and the Beast, within the book that I'm reading. Then we have Amari and the Metalwork Menace. This is the fourth book in the Supernatural Investigators series. Best book in the series so far, hence why it's on this list. But I mean, they just keep getting better. This one had anxiety representation. It had more development of the friendships between the characters. Chef's kiss. like truly am looking forward to the next book in the series. Next sequel we have is The Longest Night in Egypt. This is the sequel to The Shadow Prince. This one has Egyptian mythology, Egyptian gods, and just great fun time, great character, funny interactions. The last sequel is going to be Blood for the Undying Throne. And this one, I feel like I keep talking about this series, but it keeps surprising me. The first one is, I think, Blood of the Old Kings. And I read that last year, I believe, is when it came out. I think I read it last February, or it wasn't this February. It was last February. Maybe? Yeah, it was last February. And it shocked me. And the sequel stood up. It really lived up to my expectations and exceeded it, and I'm very much looking forward to the book 3, which I think it's a trilogy. So yeah. Next superlative is new releases I haven't read yet, but I want to. The first one being They All Fall in Love at the End. I've talked about this one in a book haul, I think it was my May book haul? It must have been, because I've not filmed my June one, so it must be my May book haul. And then it was also on my Gay Shit TBR, I think. And then we have Our Sister's Keeper. This is another one. I believe I talked about this one in my June releases video. Of course, like, I will put all the links to those down below and in the cards. Then we have A Longing Speaking Silence by Nevo, another one, part of a series, another one I talked about in one of my videos. I think it was June. And then we have The Devil with a Thousand Faces by Sunyi Dean. Fifth one on this list is By the Bootstraps by Alexa Martin. And the sixth one is To Ride a Rising Storm. Funny enough, and also not surprising, these are all books that I've talked about on my channel before, which is why I'm not giving you synopses. I'll just put the videos that they're mentioned in down below. Then the next superlative we have is my most anticipated releases for the rest of the year. And this one was so hard to narrow down. There's 9 books in here. There are 8 books. There's 8 books. We have Savvy Summers and the Po' Boy Perils cozy mystery that actually comes out in July, I think. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's about, but I read the first one. We have a woman, Savvy Summers. She runs a restaurant and a catering business, and then she ends up becoming a amateur sleuth because someone in the first book dies in her restaurant, and of course that taints her reputation. So we're just continuing her journey of amateur sleuthing. Then we have Daggermouth, which I've been hearing nothing but great things about. It is everywhere. It's apparently like a dark romantasy. I need to read it very soon. Then we have A Clash of Carnivores, which, if you watched what week was it? It's one of my Arc August vlogs from last year, where I read A Mastery of Monsters, which is the first book. I read that in a day. I read it in 24 hours. Absolutely loved it and enjoyed it. I'm so excited and cannot wait for A Clash of Carnivores to come out. Then we have I Punched an Alien and Now We're in Couples Therapy, which is by Kimberly Lemming. And this one follows Blair, and she's been, again, another second one in a romance series. She's been taken to this like alien planet and somehow becomes the bride of this warlord king. And she, of course, is like, no, don't want to do that. And it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a wild ride. The first book in this series is I Got Abducted by Aliens and Now I'm in a Rom-Com. And absolutely love that one. And so that one follows someone else, obviously. But I'm very much looking forward to it. I love Kimberly Lemming's writing. It's just like so funny, so wild, so just like out there, and also so spicy. Then we have Guardians of Dawn Suwa. This is the 4th book and the final book in the Guardians of Dawn series. I feel like I can't really tell you what it's about because that spoils a little bit, but also I haven't read the 3rd book. I plan on doing that this month, and that is Guardians of Dawn Yuli. But I'm very much looking forward to this being a completed series and me having all of them and just like being able to gush about it. Then we have And Then There Were Bun, another cozy mystery. This is by Vivian Chen. This one is in the Noodle Shop Mystery series, another one of my favorite series. Then we have the final book, and I did not know it was a final book, but this is Who the F Would Love You, and this is the final book in the Who the F series. And she has graduated from high school, and she's ready to like find love and do the whole arranged marriage thing, and just like also confront some gender norms and things like that. Absolutely love this series. Sad that it's ending, but I know it'll be super fun. And the last book in the most anticipated releases is Blood to the True Crown, which I talked about briefly because this is the sequel to Blood of the Undying Throne. biggest disappointment. The first one's going to be Best Man, Unfinished Business by Malcolm D. Lee with Jane Allen. Yeah, I didn't like this book. The main character, there was three main characters, but like the main male character was just like, you are an overgrown baby. And I know it's based off of a movie, but like low-key, I never want to watch the movie now. Because this man was just insufferable. And then two of the women, one of them was like, okay, sis is crashing out and I can relate, but also can we get your life back together? And then the other one, I was rooting for her, but we didn't get enough of her. It's just all around, it was a mess. It was a mess. And then we have Blood on the Bayou by C.C. Wright. This one was vaguely entertaining. I feel like if it were a TV show, I would watch it, but it just felt like it was missing something in terms of plot and depth. It just felt unfinished. I guess that's really what it is. It felt unfinished. Like it needed an editor to make it tighter. Then we have Kane by Jean Toomer. This is a Black classic that was on my Black Classic TBR, and I am shooketh and shocked that I hated that book as much as I did. I should have DNF'd it. If we're being so for real, I really should have just like been like, this is not for me. But I pushed through because there's only 170 pages, and I wanted to say that I read it. Honestly, that's really what that was. So yeah. Then we have The Subtle Art of Holding Space. This one hurts because if you've been watching any of my most anticipated releases videos, you know that this was one of my most anticipated releases of 2026. And I was bored and confused. And if I'm bored and confused, we have a problem. Because if I'm just confused in a science fiction book, I can go along with it. But if I'm bored, we got to go. Next superlative is biggest surprise. Why did I say it like that? Biggest surprise. And we have 6 books on this one. The first one being You Will Never Be Me by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I don't know why I was surprised by this one because she's one of my favorite authors. But this one was a domestic thriller that, was done so well. It was funny. It was out there. It deals with like influencers and content creators and just like everything that goes into that, especially mommy content creators, mommy influencers. And you follow these two best friends and essentially kind of their fallout, but not really. It's the aftermath of their fallout. And that book was wild from start to finish. Just wild. A wild ride. I highly recommend it. Then we have She Eats the Night by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. Graphic novel. A horror graphic novel, the first in a trilogy. And this one follows this woman. She has these twins and they're adults. And they felt like their mom just like never connected with them. And there's something happening with the house across the street. She's like, I need to train you guys. And they're like, train us for what? What are you talking about? And it was just funny, but it was super creepy at the same time. I will be continuing on in that series. Next up is Guardians of Dawn Zara, which I talked about in my Yes No Maybe of Q1. Definitely check out that video. Deacon King Kong by James McBride. At this point, I just need to accept that James McBride might just be one of my favorite authors because I read The Heaven and Earth grocery store, I think last year, and was shocked, shooketh, surprised that I gave that book 5 stars. And then I read Deacon King Kong, another one, and I'm like, I'm upset that I once had this in my library, and for some reason that I can't figure out, I sold it on Penguin Books, or I like put it in a little free library, and it's not one of my favorite books. This book is funny. It looks at poverty in New York. I forget when did this take place in the 70s or the 80s? It was something. It deals with shifting racial tensions and racial identity, relationships between people in impoverished neighborhoods, and again, a wild ride, but it's also tender and there's a lot of character moments and just friendships between Black men. And it was great. I loved it. And I need it in my, actually, I think, did I buy it already? I might have bought it for my collection. Yeah, and I tabbed it up and everything. Like, such a good book. No, actually, it's not the last surprise. The Fifth Surprise Matriarch by Tina Knowles. I did not think that this was going to be as excellent as it was. It's funny, it's introspective, and she has a lot to say about mothering and community and building communities, especially with Black women and raising Black daughters. And I just loved it. I loved it. Then we have Hear My Heart, which is a romance. And this one follows a woman. She is hard of hearing. Her fiance gets into a car crash, goes into a coma, and she finds out that he may not be like who he says he is, kind of. But then also his brother, who is estranged from the family, she gets in contact with him because no one has told him that his brother's in a coma. And he's like, okay, I'll stay. And then a little romance between them ends up occurring because the fiance was not treating her right and was just not fulfilling her needs in various ways. And then the brother was just like, well, I'll be in town because my brother's in a coma. And of course, they fight it. But in the end, it's a romance. So you can put that together. Next superlative is books that made me emotional slash cry. The first one is Last Beauty Queens, which is a like memoir. I don't even know if that's a word. I just made it up. I don't know. Collection of short stories following one character. Growing up, not growing up, but just living in early 2000s in New York. They are a sex worker. They're trans as well, and just the found community or the found family that they have in the community, and working in that industry, but also losing people to the remnants of the AIDS epidemic, and a lot to say about immigration. And it's just, I didn't expect it to pull on the heartstrings like that. The second book is going to be Glory by Aria Days. This one is a very smutty, very spicy, why choose, really actually polyamorous relationship between a woman and her best friend, but then also the man that she like starts a relationship with. And you might be thinking like, how did this make you emotional slash cry? Because all of the character work that was done with the three characters. The romance was great, spice was great, but the character work, especially with the main female protagonist Glory, was absolutely exceptional. And I was just like, dang, I didn't expect to be boo-hooing in the middle of the night trying to finish up this book like that. Next one's going to be Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey. This one is a nonfiction all about Black people and needing to rest, truly needing to rest. And it just, so many things I felt, obviously, expressed under this superlative. But this one, it talks about capitalism. It talks about the roots of capitalism in America and how that is very much due to chattel slavery, very much due to my ancestors, and the myth that in order for Black people to be, anyone, but really specifically Black people, to be worth anything or valuable or deserving of rest or anything is based on how productive we are and our productivity and how much we are giving. And the myth of having to earn rest. And I identified with that book a little too much, honestly, a little too much. Next one is This Book Won't Burn by Samir Ahmed, a YA contemporary about a girl who's finding the book bans in her high school. And this one made me emotional slash cry because honestly, the babies should not have to be fighting this fight. And it sucks that it's still happening. But also the emotional things that were happening with the main character and her father leaving in the beginning of the novel, and her mother and her sister having to essentially rebuild their identity as a family in the wake of their father deciding that he just like couldn't be a dad and husband anymore, just like flitted off to London. Then we have Capri 3 and Capri 3.5 by Jack L.J. This follows the Capri series, which is in the Delgado like universe, if you will. And I loved the journey that Capri went on in this series, but especially in books 3 and 3.5, and really just like finding her sense of self and being comfortable and okay being loved. Then the last one is When We Make It, which is a YA historical novel in verse that takes place in the 90s. And we follow a Puerto Rican girl who is just like trying to navigate this very fraught relationship with her mentally ill mother, as well as her older sister who has a really bad relationship with the mom, and dealing with poverty and housing insecurity, and just growing up a young woman of color in a society that over sexualizes her, undermines her, and does not protect her. The eighth superlative is books that made me happy. First one being Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places by Claire Kahn. This one follows a woman who's been given a job to stay in a haunted house and just like keep a diary log of all the things that are happening for this television show. And she, of course, is falling in love with one of the people who are working in this haunted house to bring this project to fruition. And it was just fun. It was a fun time. There were like some little creepy elements that were also really fun. Second one being Where There's Room for Us by Haley Kiyoko. And this is a historical romance, sapphic historical romance. And it takes place in like a Regency era. Think like Bridgerton, but make it a world where being queer is okay, However, being queer and a woman still means that you have some restrictions. Basically, the patriarchy is being the patriarchy in that sense. And we have a girl who is set to be married to this man. And because her eldest sister has a girl and property, for whatever reason, can't pass to women in this society, even though it's okay if it passes to men. And then she has another older sister who is married to a woman, and they are looking to adopt. But again, in this society, if two women are married, they cannot pass down property to their offspring, adopted or biological. But if two men are married, they can pass down property to their adopted children. So, like I said, patriarchy. And so we have the third daughter, who is one of the ones we're following. She feels like she has to marry a man, and she also has to produce a son, because that's the only way that the legacy and property will pass down the family line. And she's lauded on by her father because of this. Then we have, again, I don't remember names, we have girl B. She is the sister of a newly minted member of nobility. An uncle died, and the land passed to her older brother, so she moves to London. She ends up, she's like a world-renowned poet. She writes about sapphic love and things like that, and she's a little bit kind of an outcast to those who are more conservative in the English society. And her and the other girl that I was just talking about form a friendship that quickly moves to a romantic relationship, and of course there's going to be some tension there because of the expectations that are placed on the girl who's part of the gaggle of girls, essentially. And yeah, I loved it. It's also co-narrated by Haley Kiyoko, which was just like superb and fun and awesome. I'm a huge fan ever since she was in Lemonade Mouth. Then the last superlative is going to be books I want to read by the end of the year. I always put books on this list, and then I look back and I'm like, did I read it by the end of the year? Did you read it, Tia? But we'll see. We'll see. There are 5 books on this list. The first one being An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. This one takes place on like a spaceship? Or are they in the body of a spaceship? But there's a class system, and there's divisions, and yeah, that's really all I know. And then we have One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. Where's the book at? One of my favorite authors. Yeah, Alyssa Cole. Another one of her thrillers is the second one she has. And I think there's a woman who's like in a house, and do people get murdered? I think she's like suspected of something. I don't know. I try not to go into these books, especially the thrillers, knowing too much. So then it's all a surprise. Then the third book is All About Love by Bell Hooks. I feel like this needs no introduction. Then we have Happy Land by Dolan Valdez Perkins. And this one follows the kingdom on American land that was all black. And there's this woman who has some ties to it. So that's cool. And then we have We'll Prescribe You a Cat, which is the sequel to this is We'll Prescribe You Another Cat, which is the sequel to We'll Prescribe You a Cat, which is a collection of like vignette like stories about people who get another cat, and it just adds to their life. I just find that so great and so lovely. And that is my mid-year freakout tag. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know any of your favorites from the first half of 2026, surprises, disappointments, any books you're looking forward to. Did we read any of the same books or any of the books that I read on your TBR? Make sure to give this a huge like, and make sure you also subscribe and you have rung the bell so you're notified whenever I come out with a new video or go live for reading sprints on Mondays and Wednesday nights. Make sure to check out my Etsy as well as my Bonfire. And if you like to support the channel on a monthly basis, you might want to consider becoming a channel member or a Patreon member. And I will see you in another video. Bye!
Weakness showing, I ain't living for the moment. I see what's mine and I want it. Hungry like a Pac-Man, I'm Bruce Wayne and Batman. I'm Naruto with a Hanzo, got a sharp mind like I'm Einstein. Poking copywriting, so it's all mine. Check it for me, I'm